Seems like they've got problems everywhere. One problem that Ross Lyon, the coach, continues to talk about after games is their midfield.
Particularly centre square bounce, to be fair to our mids. Over the course of the year, they've been pretty good, but the first half, they got taught a lesson, to be fair. And I thought that was putting the team under a lot of pressure. Now stoppage Achilles just keeps coming to the fore.
Well, I think your man, Jason Horne-Francis, Kane, and Zach Butters, I think would have highlighted that for Ross even more so yesterday. So this is St Kilda's midfield mix. I'm not sure Ross will be with the club next year. Obviously, Jack Steele hasn't been the player that he was. Paddy Dowell's already been moved on from another club, and Hunter Clark's been back and forth. So this is a serious need for them. Max King has come under a lot of scrutiny over the last 24 hours, Kane. Would he be a better player inside another team with a different...
Well, I think he would, Lord. I sort of wrote about this 5 weeks ago, that he's got to make some decisions about his future and whether the Saints is the right place for him to be. So that's his decision, but the honest opinion is that he has to play better than what he did yesterday. Yeah. You can't be performing like you did against Brandon Zerk-Thatcher, and then clearly you are going to be under scrutiny, Sam.
The Saints couldn't think about moving him on, though.
They don't need to think about it. He's contracted until the end of 2026. So I read today from Katsumi that the Saints are sitting down and talking about an extension. Why would there be an extension now? Firstly, from the Saints to do that in the form that he's in, which has been,
because
to be honest,
everyone needs goalkeeping.
Woeful. But is he at the moment? I mean, you can go and get Marbiel Chol for a lot cheaper than what you can get Max King on an extension for $1 million a year, 2 years out from when he needs a contract extension with the same numbers. You can go and get a veteran player to provide the same. So I don't think that's the immediate concern of the Saints.
And blaming the midfielders are crap.
So you think Max King's an overrated footballer?
Well, the potential is there, but I just don't. I think the blame lies somewhere on both ends. I think Max has got to be more competitive, and we can show some examples of him yesterday, which has been well documented. But firstly, let's have a listen to Ross Lyon on the performance of Max yesterday.
When we subbed out Campbell, we needed a second ruck, so we just sent the runner out. He said, "Whatever you want, coach," and he sort of wanted to do it. So we'll sort of try to grow that aspect, because it just frees him up a bit from getting sat on, and in a weird way, that's a bit of a win for us as well, because to come through that is a little bit difficult, but he took a step forward today with that.
Yeah, I'm not sure he took a step forward. These are some of the issues. These are the ones that concern me. So the playing of free kicks. He's got to get that out of his game. He's got to provide a bigger contest in the air and not be doing this late in games. Yep, you're caught holding the ball. I don't need the exaggeration and playing for frees. And against Zerk-Thatcher, you may not mark that, but you've got to find a way to bring that to the ground. So this is on Max, but that's not to say there isn't some fault with the Saints, because I would hate to play in his position in this team. And this is Rowan Marshall, who went forward and looked like the most dangerous forward. Kicked 3 in the first half. So if Max does stay at the Saints next year, they need the option to do this. So when it was Ryder and Marshall could go forward. I'm not usually a fan of 2 rucks, but I am when this guy has forward craft. Look at the contest that he is providing that Max King wasn't yesterday. He needs help. It's not Membry. I don't know who else it is. It could be that man if they get a backup ruckman to help, so Marshall can at least play forward a little bit more.
Sorry to harp on this. If Max King was playing for Collingwood right now, or if he was playing in Harry Mackay's position for Carlton, do you think he'd be $1 million forward?
I don't know if he'd be $1 million forward, but he'd be a 30% better player than what he is.
So you do think he's overrated?
With the opportunities. No, I don't think he's overrated. I think his performance has been hurt by a system that is boring and slow with the way they move the football, and the reliance on him to be the number one man from the minute he has walked in that football club with no help.
So you say that the system is boring and slow. I don't think there's much of an argument there, but we have seen time and time again after games from Ross Lyon about wanting to go faster.
They sort of said we're better than that, and let's get some runs, some overlap and go. And we slaughtered some, kicked a few out in the full and all those things. But I think they're just trying to play positive and get it forward quicker. It's a little bit frustrating. We're trying to be more aggressive and take the contest on centre forward, but we have been pretty much in the top 4 for the last 2 years, scoring out of our D50 and defensive mid, which theoretically should be harder.
So that's the message which he's not getting through. 60 points under a roof, fresh off a bye against a team that was on their knees yesterday. That's one concern. This is another. The regression of their most talented players. What's happened to Mitch Owens? Like, what a star he was last year. He's touching the footy 9 times a game. Like yesterday, just no influence at all. Filippo's playing VFL. He should absolutely be a part of that midfield mix and trying to solve that problem, as much as it's only his second year. And Max King we've spoken about. Windhager is a player that a lot of Saints fans are excited about. I've heard Lordo speak about him. He's now playing the Ryan Crowley role, where he doesn't worry about the footy. He's just trying to scrag and stop Neil or Butters and not even get the footy himself. So that's on Ross. And I just think it's a bit of a hopeless situation when you're playing in front of 18,000 fans at Marvel.
So you're blaming Ross Lyon?
No, I think he has a role in this. Clearly, it's not all on Ross, but the game style is, and the regression of the young players has to be attributed to, at times, the coach.
Carol, you speak to a lot more people within clubland than Kane or I. So what do you think they think now after 18 months into the job for Ross Lyon? Like, originally I would have thought we want Ross to come in and be the finishing piece. What do you reckon they think right now? How far back?
The message is that the list is nowhere near good enough. It never has been. They're no good. They're not going to be any good until at least 2026.
Why was it good last year? What do they say about that?
Well, a bit of a false dawn, I guess.
How would Brett Ratton feel hearing that, you think?
I think Brett Ratton's one of the most unlucky people in football when you look at what's happened to him at both Carlton and at St Kilda.
Do they think it's a bottom 4 list?
Bottom 6, yep.
And they've found themselves in this...
And I'm not... This isn't Ross Lyon saying this to me, but this is what people at St Kilda and the footy team, the off-field footy team, is saying about themselves.
And they find themselves... I was talking to Lloydie about this on radio tonight. They find themselves in this precarious position with their list management because they're now throwing the kitchen sink at lots of different players that they're not getting. They went hard at Tom De Koning, chose to stay. We know that they threw big money at Jordan to go. Hugh McCluggage has just re-signed. Tyson Stengel over the weekend recommitting to Geelong for 5 years. They're massively into Luke Davis-Uniacke, who says he wants to be a Kangaroo for life. It has got, Cornsey, for me, a little bit of that feel of North Melbourne from 6 or 7 years ago.
And worrying about the players that they might lose. So you end up paying them more than they're probably worth, and maybe Josh Battle is in that category. Certainly Max King, I've just mentioned, he's in that battle, getting contracts that they don't deserve on performance because the club is so frightened to lose players.
And the worse they play, it's that circle. The worse they play, the harder it is to get those players.
Hey, Carol, I thought your interview with Warren Treadray and 5AA was enthralling on Thursday, and I wanted to speak to you about it because I want to play what Warren said in April of 2023 versus the message and how much of a backflip it has been.
And I just look for where Ken Hinkley sits, where he's been there 10 years. He's contracted through to the end of the year. And for me, it just looks, albeit round 3, it just looks untenable.
Who's telling you that we are not divided? We are divided because every discussion that I have had with the football club has been absolutely supportive of Ken Hinkley, his tenure, the current coaches, the role we're playing, trying to be better. And then we have this.
So after the untenable comments, he put his hand up to go on the board, which the Port fans voted him in. And I think the supporters, as far as I read it, voted him in because they thought he was going to be the one who could make some change. And it was a close vote. Bruce Abernathy was the other one. I want to ask you how the Port fans that voted him in now feel about him saying he's fully behind Ken Hinkley and has done a backflip on the thought that his role was untenable. Do you think they're upset at that?
No, because I think deep down they know that he hasn't done a backflip. I think he's still
so
very
you think
much...
he's lying publicly?
Oh, he's saying what he needs to say. Warren Treadray made that good call comment that we were so critical of last week because he was pandering to the rabble, the Port supporters who booed Ken Hinkley the week before.
That's what you think that's what he really feels?
Yep, I do.
And I think... Line.
Yeah, I think he's just taking the club line. I think he was shocked at the response from within the club. Mind you, he's a pretty tough dude, Warren Treadray. Like, he doesn't really care what anyone thinks. I mean, you played with him. That's what made him great. It's also what maybe made him occasionally selfish as a leader at the football club. And I think we're seeing it all over again now. He could not care less that he's upset players, that he's upset the coaches, that he's upset some board members, because he thinks Ken Hinkley should go. And that is, nothing you say will make me believe that he is now supporting Ken Hinkley.
So what chance do they have then? You need everything to go right as a football club to win a premiership. So what chance does Ken have?
That is why we saw what we did against St Kilda on the weekend. And let's have a look at Ken's reaction. I want to talk about the way he's carrying himself.
And how are you feeling?
Pretty hard. Been a tough week. Great boys. Great boys. I really like the fact that we're under the pump and we just stuck at it. It wasn't easy, but we got there in the end.
How much does it cut you personally, that pressure?
Oh, that's part of the job. Unfortunately, you don't want it, but you know what? I want the job, so I've got to put up with that.
Incredibly honest response from Ken Hinkley. Here he is earlier in the season after that incredibly close win against Hawthorn. Hugely emotional response, and look what he's like after the Geelong win, Kane. They hadn't won at Geelong for years.
Do you think that's sustainable?
I don't think it's sustainable, and I think that Ken needs to get on an even keel. And I like Ken Hinkley.
He's not on an even keel. Right.
I'm an enormous admirer of Ken Hinkley, but what we saw on the weekend was too much for a 2-point win over St Kilda. Get in, get out, go home. Wasn't a great win, but you won. You held on in the last quarter when they were coming.
But he's got he's got a microphone in his face. He's got an obligation to do Fox Footy. Sometimes you just are overcome with emotion.
And I love that emotion. Don't get me wrong. As a journo, I loved it. As a Ken Hinkley fan, I loved it. I'm telling you, you can't keep that emotional roller coaster going for the rest of the season. He's just declared he wants the job. He's declared he wants the job. He's got a bloke on the board who doesn't want him, and he knows it. So the club is divided, whatever Warren Treadway says. Ken knows it. The coaches know it. The players know it. His job now is to simmer down and be the calm, cool Ken Hinkley that these players need to end the season and finish in the finals.
That's a fairly substantial allegation. You've basically called Ken Hinkley unbalanced.
No, I think that's reasonable. I think that's reasonable advice.
You said he's not on an even keel and he's on an emotional roller coaster.
We've seen it. I think those over celebrations are symptomatic of the pressure he's under and what he's going through. And Sam, Ken Hinkley is not in any way unbalanced. He has been a brilliant coach who has helped save that footy club from the doldrums.
You just said that what he's going through emotionally right now is not sustainable.
It's not sustainable, not for the players. They don't need that. They don't need that. They need something a bit calmer, and I hope that we see that for the rest of the season.
The problem is he goes back to play at home, where he's going to cop the boos of the fans. Again, they'd much rather play at home, which is a blight on the Port Adelaide fans at the moment.